This is the Horse Radio Network.
This is episode 363 of the Stable Scoop Radio Show, the do's and don'ts of farms and moms. Please support our sponsors as they make this show possible.
And those sponsors would be Equisketch, Easy Signs Online, and Sparkle and Boom.
Welcome to the Stable Scoop, with weekly shows delivered right to you. With Helena and Glenn the Geek, live from the stable, it's every week. They bring you the news through hail or high water, while using their tails as their own fly swatters. So sit on down and laugh till you poop, cause it's time again for Stable Scoop. Stable Scoop. Stable Scoop. Stable Scoop.
This is Coach Jen.
And this is Helena B. And you're listening to the Stable Scoop Radio Show on the Horse Radio Network. I am so pleased to have my good friend, Coach Jen, with us this week. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you.
Jen and I can get, Glenn doesn't let us do shows together very often because the recordings.
Are hours long. That's the problem.
Like, seriously, It's like 3 hours long. So, of course, his editing job is just crazy. But Jen and I have a blast. And so let me quickly tell you what this week's episode is about. We're going to be talking about what it's like to be farm shopping today. Our good friend Michelle Barr from Right Lead Equestrian Center, she's going to talk to us about what it was like and what she went through in buying her new farm, and things to stay away from and things to think about. We're also going to talk to Coach Mom. That would be Coach Jen's mother. Pat is going to talk to us about a little of the history and how Coach Jen came to be Coach Jen, and what it was like being a horse show mom to a couple of rowdy kids, ponies riding their ponies and trick-or-treating.
Horse show mom to the neighborhood.
Horse show mom to the neighborhood. Yes. And we're also going to talk about poultices in our Tack and Habit segment this week. What they are, what kinds there are, what their ingredients are, and what Jen and I keep in our barns. So don't go away. Stay tuned for a chock full episode of Stable Scoop. We will be right back.
This week's EasySignsOnline.com spotlight product is their New England Style Farm Signs, their most popular line of signs. New England Style Farm Signs are very durable and designed for long-term outdoor use with no maintenance required, no wood to rot, and no paint to peel. They will outlast the old style painted wood signs by many, many years. They are available in many sizes, shapes, and styles, which makes them the perfect sign for any farm or business. Go online today and go through the EasySignsOnline.com easy step-by-step ordering process to see all the prices and options available. They also offer free, no-obligation sign proofs on all New England-style signs, and you get free shipping as well on all New England-style signs. So replace your old worn-out sign and make a great first impression with a new farm sign from EasySignsOnline.com. And the holidays are right around the corner, so it's a terrific gift idea. I can't think of a better one. Visit EasySignsOnline.com.
This week, we welcome Michelle Barr, who is a new farm owner. And Michelle's going to talk to Jen and I about how she got to be a new farm owner and all of the wonderful parts of shopping. I say wonderful with tongue in cheek. All the wonderful parts of shopping for a farm, what to do, what not to do. So welcome, Michelle.
Hi.
You are in the beautiful state of Louisiana, and you have a brand new, sparkly, awesome farm. Tell us where it is.
I do. I have a brand new place in Minden, Louisiana, which is just 15 minutes from Bossier City, and I realize probably nobody knows where that is either. And Bossier is right on the other side of the Red River from Shreveport. so people will know more where Shreveport is.
Okay, so yeah, that name sounds familiar to me. You know, it's so funny. Like you think that, I guess when anybody lives in any part of the country, you kind of your body of knowledge extends to like a 500 to 600 mile radius outside of that epicenter of your world.
Everybody thinks New Orleans. Yeah.
Right. So
That is
Yeah.
the only
Yeah.
city in Louisiana, right? New Orleans.
Yeah.
You could
You've been
poll
there,
25 Americans, and 25 Americans could name one city in Louisiana.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right, and
No,
I'm
this
gonna
is
make
this is the other end from New Orleans.
The other end. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what kind of horse stuff do you do? You are a trainer. What's your focus?
So I do eventing. I do some dressage. Also a certified side saddle instructor. So I do some side saddle. I have rare breed horses. I have Cleveland Bays. And so I like to take my Cleveland Bays out side saddle and promote the breed and promote a dying form of riding. But we do all kinds of cool stuff. Whatever looks good, we do it. Go to competitive trail ride, we'll do it. Go to jumper show, we'll do it. Whatever looks good.
Whatever looks good. And so you decided to dive into farm ownership not too long ago. How did you start? You're like, okay, it's time for me to get my own place. How did you make the list of things that you absolutely had to have? Like, what were your shopping criteria?
Mm-hmm. Well, this is not my first place. This is my first place on my own. So this is, it's a big step. But I already had an idea of things that I needed. Non-negotiable was good ground. After having lived on not good ground for a very long time, you need to find a piece of property that's going to drain, that's going to grow some grass without a huge amount of effort on your part. I needed some shade. I needed a place for me to live and for the dog to live, and enough room for all of my horses, an arena. 2 arenas, because I like to have my dressage arena set up separately from just an empty arena, or maybe I can put some stadium jumps. Extras, it'd be nice if it had some feature to it, and that's just going to depend on where you live. If you live in Kansas or Arizona, it's going to be flatter. I'm real lucky the place I have now, I have rolling hills and I have some flat spots, and it's so ideal it's scary.
It's great for cross-country schooling, I guess, if you...
Mm-hmm. Oh, I see some steps getting carved into the side of one of these hills. It's coming. It's coming.
So
right now it's at the bottom of the list, but it's coming.
It's coming. It'll move its way up the list, kind of like the cream
Yes, it
coming to the
will.
top. Yeah. So when you made your list and you got started, did you start with the famous online search on Trulia or Zillow or Realtor.com? Did you start with a realtor? What was the first step in seeing what's out there, so to speak?
Yeah, I did a lot of it myself. I'm not familiar with the first place you named. The newspaper, there are 2 realtors in Shreveport that specialize in horse property, and I gave them a call, told them what I was looking for, and that's a real luxury. These poor realtors that are not horse people, and they try, but they don't understand what we need. And if you get one trained and they're receptive and they understand, then please stick with them. But it's going to be tough. My dad got into the ag. He started looking on the internet, and whenever we saw something interesting, we'd drive by, and if we could see it from the road, then we'd call the listing agent and set up an appointment. And that's basically how it worked here.
So how many places did you set up appointments with and go see about, and over what time period?
Oh, wow. I had been looking for a little over a year. The first place I bought, I looked very actively in every spare moment for a little over 2 years. And it turned out that it was a word of mouth. Ended up buying from a girl that I knew, just casually talking at a horse show. I'm looking for a place. She says, I have a place. I really should sell it. I'm not living there anymore. And that's how it all worked out. With this place, I was not actively looking until probably April or May. And then it was full on. My parents were involved. I was involved. Some of my students were involved. I mean, the hunt was on. And again, it turned out to be, the horse community is so small. It turned out to be a friend of a friend who had a place. We did happen to see the listing, and then everybody put two and two together. That, just talking to your horse friend, talking to your trainer, talking to your farrier, talking to your vet. I know the place I have for sale in Baton Rouge. The first person I called was not the realtor. The first person I called was the vet and said, "Put the word out."
It's true. It
Because
reminds me.
they're going to know your audience. We're looking for something specific, and as a buyer and as a seller, we are looking for someone specific to take it over.
So,
Because
during your little search there of all of your must-haves, this group of 10 items are non-negotiable. As you went through and looked at all the different places before you settled on the one you have, what was the criteria that was a deal breaker most frequently? You went to 5 different farms. Was it 5 different criteria that you couldn't find, or was there one that was really hard to come across?
It was. There was always something that just something you couldn't fix, or it was so expensive to fix. Demolish the barn and start over, or I'd be scared to live in that house because there might be creatures that could get into the house. Fencing, you can fix that if it's not a complete takedown, start over 100%.
If the price reflects the fact that you're going to invest $10,000 in fencing, yeah.
Yeah, it really depends on. I think it's a lot like pre-purchasing a horse. What is your budget? What can you live with, and what can you not live with? I needed a house, and I needed somewhere safe to put the horses. Those were my bottom line. The fact that I got an arena with lights, holy cow! I mean, who would have thought?
Score for you. Yeah, that was a bonus right there. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
So let's fast forward to the point where you find just what you want. You're like, okay, it may have everything that you're looking for, or it may have only 1 or 2 things that you're looking for, but it's got the potential to be what you need it to be, right?
Right.
So, at what point, and this is the really hard part, I think, at what point do you start to create a timeline for moving your horses? Because none of us ever buy a farm and not have horses. So there's always the problem of how and when do you move the horses? Who do you put where? What kind of fencing? Yeah. Now you inherited, I'm getting all over the place here because I do have a little bit of the inside story on your fencing dilemma. But fencing is obviously the very first thing that has to go up, sometimes even before your stalls and all that. Tell us about your fencing dilemma and the solution that you found.
So I have 20 acres. It's fenced and cross-fenced, and it had some pretty heinous barbed wire, and it was everywhere. The place where I had the horses in the interim was, let's say, substandard, and that's a real reach up for this place. And the horses were continually going through the fence, and I have a yearling who at this point has no respect for fence. And I could just see him running through a fence, a barbed wire fence. My older horses would roll right next to the fence, somebody rolling, putting the leg through it. And I just couldn't do that. Especially not wanting to have clients having boarders. So first order of business is to come out here and take all the barbed wire down. Every last piece of it. I do have some beautiful, amazing PVC fence up around the house. And I got some horse fence, some of the wire, the mesh kind of fence, and strung that out and made a big pasture for the boys. And luckily, it's tall enough. It's almost 5 feet. They're not going to push on it. Well, they'll push on it, but they're not going to go over it or through it. And put the boys back there, and put the girls up here around the house behind the other part of the PVC fence. And that allowed me an immediate solution and a little bit of cushion on getting the electric tape up, which is what I'm going to put up right now. Now, the flip side of that is I'm constantly running horses off of the carport and cleaning up off the carport and the patio and everywhere else. So there's high motivation to get the rest of the fence done up front. But, getting them behind somewhere safe was just huge. I was not going to be able to bring them here with the barbed wire and it just wasn't going to work.
Okay, so Jen wants me to ask this. Clearly. Backing up a little bit when you were talking about how to spread the word that you're either selling a place or buying the place. The vet is always a good person to get in touch with. How did you vet out your farm now before you decided that you wanted to purchase it? So you just talked about that list of things that you have and the potential and whatever. How did that process go of, the first time you step up foot on the property and you go, I can do this, like I can't accept that, or I can't accept this?
Well, I came in very apprehensive because you see so many places that aren't going to work and you think, God, am I wasting my time? Here we go again. There's a million other things I could be doing other than driving out, to the middle of nowhere to look at a place that's probably falling apart. So I was pleasantly surprised, and we came back a couple of times to have a look. The rains this spring, I don't know if everybody saw the unbelievable flooding we had on the Red River this year, but Shreveport and Bossier were underwater, quite literally, all the way up into the downtown areas on both sides. And so there was a night where we had something like 4 inches of rain, 4.5 inches of rain. It was ridiculous. So we called up and said, we want to come see the place today after this rain.
Brilliant.
Just to see how it drains, to see where it collects, just to see what sort of leaks are in the barn, that sort of situation. And unbelievably, there's so much feature. The ground is just sandy enough that it looked like it didn't even rain.
Especially,
I'm telling you, it's amazing.
That's important, especially after the rains. And I mean, you guys had quite the spring this year in Louisiana, didn't you? So you were really feeling the benefit of this property draining the way you wanted it to. Absolutely.
And seeing, the health of the grass, we were so lucky. The people that had it were so accommodating and so nice. And I asked a million questions. And what is the base of your arena? How long has it been there? What is your, give me how you constructed the arena. They built this place themselves. So they restored the house. So they were able to answer a lot of the questions that maybe somebody who had just bought it from someone else couldn't have answered. So they knew, exactly how old the barn was. They knew exactly where all the materials came from, how it was done. Same thing with the house, same thing with the arena. Of course, being a small town, everybody knows everybody in this neighbor, and he'll probably let you use the acreage up front, and this neighbor over here, and he'll probably help you come and if you want to bail. And the people that had it, their involvement was critical. How do you maintain your grass? Do you seed? Do you fertilize? Do you lime? What do you do?
Mm.
And it was they were a huge part of the equation.
That makes me feel good. As you're telling the story, it makes you feel supported, and that there are opportunities, and that you're part of something. It's, we tend to want, think of ourselves as these strong, independent women. And while we may be, there is something to be said for that sense of belonging to a group of people, community, a network of farms and farmers who always have your back. I mean, I think that's what makes us love this lifestyle, is that the people who embrace it are very much the kind who will have your back and, help. It's just, we have that here in my neck of the woods, where, you've got so many acres, but then the property owner behind you, who's got another 20, says, sure, go ahead. If you want to mow it, you can use it. You can ride through it. Your horses can graze. Yeah. And then, the neighbor across the street whose cows decide to come over and visit. It all becomes a very supportive thing, which that in itself could make, be a big buy decision.
That's huge.
That's critical,
we are all
especially
in
now.
it together.
Yeah.
Because having lived somewhere where people moved, quote, to the country, but don't want
exactly
to see the horses, don't want to hear the horses, don't want to hear, because they're on top of you, don't want to hear the lessons. There's cattle that do get loose and run down the street, and you can't just drive into them. You need to stop and help, and that sort of environment is fostered here. We are all in this together, and here comes the weird English girl, because it's a predominantly Western area. But oh, hey, come out to the rodeo arena. We're rail racing Friday night, and they don't care. I mean, they probably do, but not. They're not snobby, and the bottom line is a horse is a horse.
There are few enough of us out there these days, but we need to set the differences aside and say, sure, come on over and barrel race your dressage horse. We love it.
I'm into anything.
You can be that girl.
Why not?
Yeah. And now one last question. I'm curious, Michelle, because this is the second time you've bought the farm. Is there anything? Is there anything that you would have done from beginning to end of this process differently on this, or is there anything that you did differently this one versus the last one that you just like, oh, not going to do that again?
Well, yeah, there's I won't do that again, but it's not suitable for this radio show.
That's a different program, different podcast altogether.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Let's schedule that one though, Jen.
Right. That's off air with a drink.
Everything that's going to be on the auditor's loop. That one, the auditor's
right.
loop, yeah.
No, everything has been so good, and my parents have been remarkably supportive. The people that had it are still, if I have a question about the pool, or I have a question about the, oh wait, where did you tell me to go get feed again, or how does this, I can't find the latch for the whatever building. And you just call them up. It's great. It's been such a positive experience. It's almost like a dream, and I keep waiting. Am I going to wake up and it's not going to be real? And every day I wake up and it is real.
Now, have you? Now, this purchase is brand spanking new.
Not even been in here a month.
Not even been here a month.
Wow.
Okay. Mm-hmm. And are you feeling? So you're sleeping in the house now, like it's home for you. You get up in the morning.
Yeah,
and you go to sleep
I stayed here the first time on the 1st of this month, 1st of July, and the furniture arrived on the 23rd. So I'm so pleased to be sleeping in my bed and to have a chair to sit in and a table to sit at. So that's been huge.
A chair. I know. But I have a chair and a table. Yeah. Yay!
I know. I sent my dad a picture that he and my mom and my sister were in Kansas with my grandmother. And I said, I'm eating lunch at a table. It's amazing. But there's so much to do. You don't miss it. Well, you just don't miss it. You're not inside.
You're not. No, you're you're embracing your future is what you're doing. So tell us, you operate Right Lead Equestrian Center. Tell people where they can find out more about your services as a trainer. And then, of course, they'll be able to see your lovely new place when they show up.
Yeah. You can look us up on Facebook at Right Lead Equestrian Center. And I have a super awesome website, thanks to somebody we all know here in this group, www.rightlead.com. And you can look around there. There will be new stuff very soon, I hope. And you can give me an email at Michelle, MICHELLE, at rightlead.com.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much, Michelle Barr, Right Lead Equestrian.
Sure.
Check her out on Facebook. Of course, we remain your biggest fans.
Oh, y'all are so sweet. Thanks for having me on.
Thanks, Michelle.
Glenn the Geek here. The life of horse person is hard enough, and we all hate doing the required paperwork, and unfortunately, many of us never get around to it, and it just piles up on our desk. That is about to change thanks to the EquiSketch Records app for your iPhone or iPad. My wife and I use it to track our horses, and we absolutely love this thing. EquiSketch Records is the most thorough and complete equestrian records app on the market today. We love this app because you can track your farrier work, your dental, your coggins, medicines, worming, and so much more. And you can get reminders on your device when all of these things are due. You'll never forget a worming or shots or farrier visit again. But it not only tracks your horse, you can also manage your horse shows, including individual events. You can manage riders, including lessons and memberships, and so much more. And you can sync it between your iPhone and your iPad, and all of this for the price of a couple of cups of coffee from Starbucks. Search for EquiSketch Records in the iOS App Store or go to EquiSketch.com. That's EquiSketch.com. EquiSketch.com.
And I get to welcome a guest to Stable Scoop Show this time, Helena. And it's been a long time coming. Finally, at last, Coach Jen's mom is going to be on the air. Welcome to the show, Mom.
Well, thank you.
Coach Mom.
Coach Mom.
We're honored. Coach Mom. Well, this is, you paid your dues as a mom. And so you are enjoying a little bit of the freedom from the life of a horse show mom. You were like the original horse show mom. How did your momhood and horses start? How did that all come together?
Well, I bought my first horse because my kid's dad wanted some money on an organization. They had a widow's drawing, and they sent me the check with my name on it.
Oh, score! I didn't know that.
So I spent it.
On a horse.
On a horse.
It was like $50 or something, wasn't it?
No, it was $125.
Big bucks. Big bucks.
Big bucks. Big bucks. But the first horse I ever climbed up on was at the Hershey State Police Academy. Was like across the block and down the hill from where I lived. I was 4 or 5 years old, and I knew there were horses down there, and I would actually I snuck off and would go down there, and I would climb up the stall and climb on Goldie's back. And when the state police cadets would catch me, they would get me down and take me out and send me back home again. And I probably turned around and went right back down the following week. I was down there at the academy a couple of weeks ago on a tour, and they had a picture of Goldie and Major Martin.
Really?
There was a picture of her first horse I ever climbed up on.
How cool. You need to get a copy of that.
I did. I took a picture of it.
That's cool. So from early on, you were hanging out at the police station in trouble. Early on. That's what I'm getting at.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
Yeah. Although I kind of got away with it because I was the only little girl. It was boys, and they figured, boys were the ones that got into mischief. This little girl just followed them around because she had nothing else to do. I did not tell them any otherwise.
So you had the horse bug from early on. We're gonna fast.
yeah.
We're gonna fast forward through several ill-fated attempts at horse ownership that I recall. We'll just pass over those because they're just not all that pleasant. To how old were us kids, and how many of us were there when we first started going to horse shows?
Well, there were 5 or 6 of you at a time.
So
Yeah.
Jen, you were the younger. Are you the youngest in your family?
Yes, I was
Jen?
the
Okay.
youngest in the troop. So
You're the
one-
youngest in the troop.
Yes. So once.
So
go ahead.
But so your older siblings obviously were in the saddle and traipsing off to friends' houses and here and there before you did. Do you remember the first time you were able to get up in the saddle and have your own quote unquote transportation?
I think what happened timing wise, because our family went from 3 children to 6 children overnight because we adopted some.
Okay.
So when the horses came into the family's life, it was a case of every single child wanted on the 1 or 2 ponies we had, and we fought over them. We had like 2 or 3 ponies when we started out, and everybody was always fighting over who could have the ponies. So those, bless their little hearts, those little ponies had 6 kids pounding around on them all the time. But so we very rarely had enough ponies to go around between all of the kids and the adults in the family who all wanted to go riding. So when we first started to go to little horse shows as a family, Mom, because I don't remember a whole bunch of it, how did you deal with the fact that there were frequently more kids than ponies available? How did you get through that, frankly, war?
By the time we had 6 kids here for like a couple of months or 6 months, there were 5 ponies.
So you just kept buying more ponies?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, ponies were not expensive back in the time. Really. You could buy really nice ponies for $100. And, you know, we went, as you may remember, we went to the horse auction every weekend.
So this explains a lot, Jen. This explains a lot about your very well-trained eye. Your very well-trained tack shopping eye. This started a long time ago, and you've had lots of experience.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. The best thing to pick a horse is sit and watch hour after hour after hour.
All right. So we go from, so these were your most humble, wonderful beginnings. At some point, you go from pony shopping and tack shopping and visiting friends and trick-or-treating on horseback to I want to compete. And was Jennifer the only one who rode competitively?
They all joined the 4-H club.
Okay.
That was the thing.
Okay.
So they did that. And they all did quite well in 4-H club because 4-H club was heavy into record keeping, clean ponies, and that sort of thing.
Back in the day, I don't know if they still run it this way, in 4-H club horse 4-H club, every member must enter the halter class or the in-hand class because that's part of your yearly award. You have to enter the class so that the judge judges you and said, yes, you took good care of your pony. He's in good condition and he's clean and you know how to handle him safely. That's really all it was.
Basic horsemanship.
Basic horsemanship. But we would fight over who got to take the good pony.
Did the good pony always win?
Well, the good pony always got you a better ribbon because there would be hundreds of kids in this class. And, you know, we with our auction ponies weren't likely to get a ribbon. We would get a stamp of approval in that we achieved the test that we needed to do, but we didn't necessarily get a ribbon. So it would be a case of, you know, oh, I want to take so-and-so in the class because so-and-so is properly halter broke and behaves himself. So here you are wrangling between you and a number of other moms at this horse show. This is a country horse show, wrangling a heap of children and going in 15 different directions. How did that happen? Because take me through, you know, you pull into the horse show grounds at 4-H with five and a half kids and 8 ponies. You pull in. What happens next?
You start unloading everything, hope the kids stick around long enough that the ponies don't run off. Because where we went for the 4-H club stuff was on a big farm. There's plenty of room, and there was a pond.
It was a little bit of
One
a
of the
distraction.
big things with the
Yeah.
kids was after the whole thing was over, everybody took off their boots and their saddles, and they wanted to go in the pond.
So you dangled
horses-
that carrot in front of us a lot, I remember, in that if we behaved ourselves all day long, we would be allowed to take the ponies swimming.
Yes.
See, that is my generation's version of I'm taking your cell phone now, and if you behave all day at the horse show, I'll give it back to you.
Right.
So lesson 1 is you have to have a carrot to dangle in front of the children's egos to keep them mannerly. So from your point of view as the horse show mom wrangling heaps and heaps of children, because you weren't the horse show coach, you were the horse show mom. There was no coach.
Yeah.
Getting everything unpacked and organized was kind of key at the beginning of the day, wasn't it?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. And a couple of the kids were good at that. Tommy was very good at that. He was the oldest kid, and he liked being in charge and in control.
Oh, so
And he
assignment was
liked-
good. Okay, you had to assign
He
them.
liked saying, you get this, and you get that. And he could keep an eye on everybody.
Did you know he was
And-
good at that sort of thing? Did you have an idea? Was this sort of one
No,
of those?
he just, that's just the way he was.
Hmm.
But when things needed fixed or ponies caught or something like that, it was David. David thought nothing of walking up to a pony that was acting up and walking up and scratching him in a chin and going, oh, you silly little thing.
So
and the
it did
ponies
become
would look at him and say, oh, you're so cute.
So you've got you're kind of divvying out assignments to this
Yes.
herd of children according to what their innate skill sets are, because most of us were pretty young. Well, how about the
Yes.
kids that got dragged along to the horse show? Because I know we always had hangers on that had no interest at all whatsoever in a pony, but somehow or another they seemed to get to the horse show on time, get packed back up into the horse van, and get back home all in one piece. Were there any, or what were your tricks there to keep that group from self-destructing or running away?
Most of the time, they were not my kids. They were somebody else's kids that was at the horse show, and they kind of stuck the little kids with me for some reason or other to be babysat. Do you know that the average horse halter will fit a small child, pony size, up to about 5 or 6?
She would lunge them, Helena. She'd take them out and lunge them till they were tired.
I did not.
That's a smart mom. In
I
fact,
tied them to the fence.
You have been known to
outside.
tie them to a patience pole.
And I gave them little cups of water because we didn't have, plastic bottles of water then. They had little paper cups with water and spoons and dirt, and they could play in the mud.
Yeah, you
And
really
that's what they did.
you put no stock in keeping children clean, did you?
No way.
No. I think that was
No.
key to our happiness, to tell you the truth.
I mean, my farm isn't even that big, and I can't keep myself clean. I have more dirt under my fingernails sometimes than my kid does. So it's just
That's why you
know,
wash dishes by hand sometimes.
That's true. You're not kidding. I'm like, oh, I have to scrub the horse's water buckets. Hands are clean. I can eat.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. You're like,
Exactly.
I got to scrub the pots and pans. Hands are clean.
Yeah. Now, do you also leave your boots at the door?
I do.
Yep.
I do. And that's because, when you are the person who cleans up, you try to minimize the amount of work that you have to do when you're done wrangling your kids and your horses and your cats and your dogs. So
Yes,
boots
yes.
stay outside as much as possible. But, flies and dirt and hay and shavings, that all ends up in the house. So if you could give some tips to up and coming horse show moms. Now you have obviously did you
Oh,
find
yeah.
your role as a horse show mom to be changing as well? Did you have to get less involved or did you get more involved? Was it less or more emotional?
I don't know about emotion. This is what my kid did, and I was proud as heck of her. I became more of a groom, and Jennifer had her own checkbook, but that meant that she kept track of her fees for classes and for shows and things like that. So she always made that decision on which show to go to. You can give your daughters a bunch of money, and if they buy the wrong clothes, they blew it. Same thing with horse shows. The thing that happened as she got older and was continuing this stuff, because she stayed with Jane for I don't know how long, but every summer, school closed, Jennifer was gone the following weekend. School was open, she came home the weekend before. Not too soon, mind you.
But that's an interesting point you make about being a horse show mom, that you had the confidence, or maybe the foolishness, I don't know which, to step back and let me make mistakes.
And I guess you did. I can't
didn't
say
tell
that
you.
I know what
I
they might
didn't
have
tell
been.
you about them. No, and I think that's a big mistake. A lot of horse show moms, and this is apart from horse mom. Horse show mom is parents are afraid to step back and let their kids, their competitive children that are out showing horses, make a mistake. They're so scared of the kid making a mistake that they tend to hold that bubble a little bit too long or make it too big. And you didn't do that. You were perfectly happy to step back. Okay, I wasn't sufficiently organized. I got to the horse show an hour late. I missed my dressage time. Therefore, I just blew $75 in entry fees because I screwed up. And you were, hey, if you screwed up, you screwed up. That's on you. You'll learn from it and do better next time. So that's an interesting
yeah, I
point.
don't think you ever made the same mistake twice.
Oh, yeah, I did. I just didn't tell you.
Oh, okay. You weren't crying on my shoulder about it.
No, there was no need for that.
You know.
So for all the years that you dragged assorted kids, your own as well as others, to horse shows, and you spent a number of years as a Pony Club district commissioner, so you had kids of every sort and age and interest level. What is one thing that you observed at horse shows, that horse show moms, and this counts for horse show dads too, at the competitions, that you could say, you know, as an up and coming horse show mom, please don't, that you just see a lot of, that you, oh, I wish they wouldn't.
Don't grouch at the kid.
Oh, I like that. Thank you.
Don't ever take the attitude that the ribbon is what you're admiring.
So it's important as a horse mom, experienced or otherwise, that if you want to see your kids have a good sportsmanlike attitude, you need to adopt it too.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty
When
much
I
it.
coached Little League Baseball, I was all for those kids. I really enjoyed that. I got to admit.
So, well, we're going to have to wrap it up here because we're getting to the end of our recording block of time here. But thanks, Mom, for coming on. I just heard all kinds of stories I never heard before, Helena. I'm a little uncomfortable, I have to admit.
I'm a little uncomfortable. Well, Pat, we are so glad that you came on and gave us the history of Coach Jen and the inside scoop of what it means to be a horse mom, as well as a horse show mom. And, you know, you really did. We messaged each other about this briefly, but when you pass down those values to your daughter and then she passed them on to me, and as my daughter grows, I get to pass them on to her. It really takes the concept of responsible horse care it's a legacy. So, you know, if you're a horse mom, just keep doing what you're doing. Do it. And you just don't know whose life you're going to touch and how far into the future you're going to keep touching a life. Next up, our Tack and Habits segment. And this segment is sponsored by Sparkle and Boom. You can visit them online at sparkleandboom.com. Today, Jen and I are going to talk about, drum roll please, poultices.
Poultice. Woo!
We're going to tell you what a poultice is, what kinds of poultices there are, and then we're going to ask you a question.
Yeah.
All right.
What prompted this is we have a local Facebook page here in Ocala for all of us trail riding types. And of course, I'm a member of it. And of course, everybody is comparing abscess stories this time of year because here in Florida, we are in the wet and rainy season.
Yeah, okay.
So lots and lots of abscesses flying around. And of course, as soon as there's abscesses flying around, everyone talks about poultice. So I thought, you know, let's do the whole poultice thing because there's more to it than just a bucket of clay.
Yep.
There is.
Yep.
So, first off, what is poultice?
Oh, are you asking me?
Yes.
A poultice is, well, it's a preparation that you put on your horse's boo-boo that it's usually something sloppy and gooey and thick, and then you wrap a little something around the sloppy, gooey thickness. And its intent is to draw out moisture, and then with the moisture, any kind of infectious, icky, organic material that's making your horse ouchy.
Dang, pretty good.
All right.
Pretty good. Poultice is indeed gooey stuff. It's a gooey, smushy preparation that you put on to either draw out infection or to draw out heat. As in the case of you put it on your horse's legs after he goes cross country, so because his legs are going to get kind of hot and tired. That is the very generic term for it. Although, to the best of my knowledge, and listeners correct me if I'm wrong, there's no actual research that tells us that putting a poultice on your horse's legs does that.
Nothing.
No
Nothing
scientific
that
research.
proves-
It's as far as I know, it's completely tradition in that any one of a number of non-poultice methods of bandaging a horse's legs could conceivably do exactly the same thing. I'm just going to prerequisite for that for you anti-poultice folks. That being said, we have two kinds. We have hot poultice and cold poultice. Those are not necessarily divided by the ingredients used, but more in the temperature of the poultice when you put it on the horse's body. That's what makes it a hot poultice or a cold poultice. Cold poultices are for drawing out heat, obviously. Like Michelle said, you're standing around cold hosing a leg.
Mhm.
Frequently, if you're cold hosing a horse, especially in his leg, some supportive therapy that might go along with it would be poulticing it as well. After you're done cold hosing, you put a cold poultice on.
What kind of gooey stuff would be in a cold poultice?
Most cold poultices are a clay base with
Okay.
added ingredients. Yes, they're made up of either Bowie or bentonite clay, which is that really that gray, smooth stuff. And then various and sundry ingredients are added to it, usually for either the effect that they feel cold against your skin, or because traditionally they have a drawing effect in that they'll draw out edema or excess swelling. One of the two.
Okay.
That's usually what you're going to see in a cold poultice. And
They use those a lot at the racetrack, don't they?
pretty much every single day on every horse. Yes. Yes.
Okay, score one for Helena.
Score 100. Back in the day when I worked for a retail operation that serviced the racing industry, those folks buy their poultice. They buy it either in a 5-gallon bucket, frequently half a dozen buckets at a time, or they'll actually just buy the dry clay and make their own. They'll buy 50 or 100-pound bags of Bowie clay and then make their own because they can mix their special ingredients in it.
They can mix their special, and when you use it that often and in those volumes, you find just the right recipe to last a long time. To reproduce its effects.
You want it to do exactly what you want it to do.
Want it to do right.
That's right. We're very opinionated that way as horse folks. And then conversely, we have warm poultices. Now, warm poultices can be made out of any number of ingredients. The point being with a poultice that's warm is generally to draw out infection. And again, to the best of my knowledge, there's no scientific studies that say the ingredients draw out the infection. Some people say that I've read editorially that the reason they work is not because they literally draw out the infection, but because they soften the surface tissues enough that infection, which is causing pressure inside the body, seeks the path of least resistance. And that's where it goes.
It usually comes down to physics. I have to agree with that.
Physics
it's
applies
true.
at the molecular level. It does.
It's true. Chemistry is unpredictable, but physics is pretty spot on.
Pretty spot on.
With chemistry, you kind of have to get exactly the right measure of each ingredient, and then even then,
with
you never
chemistry,
know.
if you can, a couple of grams of something can go either milkshake or explosion.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
Fertilizer
Spoken from firsthand
bomb,
experience.
Right? Yeah.
Yep. It's true.
Exactly.
Okay, so let's just say then that, well, whatever the mechanism is, the heat, the warmth helps to relieve the pressure that's built up behind the infection.
Right. Now,
And then allowing it to drain.
Right.
So like any type of infection or bacterial invasion, or any, it's the body needs to shed the virus or needs to shed the bacteria. And it does this through pressure and oozing and all that stuff. So we're saying here that the warm poultice can help that process along.
facilitates that walled off infection being released from the body. Yes.
Okay. All right.
Now, something you don't see in this day and age very much anymore is a warm poultice for the purposes of increasing circulation. For example, a sore muscle.
Okay.
Back in the day, before we had lots of other choices, it wasn't that uncommon to use a poultice to warm up muscles. Because now, if you put a clay poultice on something, it's most always either to draw out infection or it's because something is hot and you're putting it on cold. But you
Right.
can use those warm as well. You just don't see it very often anymore. One of the common ways you see that used still in this day and age is something called an Epsom salts poultice, which is basically Epsom salts dissolved into a neutral carrier, like glycol or some kind of gooey stuff. So it's about
Yep.
the texture of butter.
Right.
And
So it doesn't dissolve. Or rather, it dissolves. But there's a difference between a solution and a suspension.
right.
Right. Okay.
Well, it's
this is
dissolved. It's kind of lumpy bumpy, but it's kind of like spreading butter with salt in it on your horse. And that's
okay.
used in a warm capacity to.
That makes
and you'll
me
see that on-
hungry. Is that
Yeah.
weird?
Yeah, you're right. Bacon fat.
Butter and salt on my
Yeah, butter.
horse.
To warm up
There are
muscles,
times where I'd like to put them on the grill. I'll tell you.
Yeah,
With a
there you
little
go.
butter and salt.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry, but I digress. So we have the Epsom salts in the goo, in the gel base.
Mhm.
And with all of these things, though, we have to, like you said, you have to put some kind of waterproof or impervious covering to help keep the warmth in and the goo.
Well, and here again, there's a wide variety of method. For example, you go to the racetrack or to a breeding farm where there are a lot of growing youngsters, you will frequently see poultice on their knees. They spread it on their knees to help keep swelling to a minimum during those really fast growth spurts, because sometimes their knees will get a little sore.
Okay.
Just from the growth plates growing as fast as they do. And they very rarely put anything over top. They just put it on there, and there's no covering. So in the tradition of using poultice in the horse industry, it's not always a covered poultice.
Okay.
Okay. The process of drying, when something is wet and it goes to dry, is generally a cooling process. So as it dries, it's going to draw heat from the body a little more chemistry. So you don't always see it on there, but probably 80% of the time you do. But depending on the application, it's one of those things. Ask some grizzled old horse person in your neighborhood what they did. And again,
I think I am the grizzled old
Yeah,
horse
right?
person.
that's the joy of being in Ocala. I can always find someone older than me. Always. And again, I don't know if there's any scientific data that backs all this stuff up, but that's what we used it for. Hocks and knees frequently don't bother to put bandages over top because it's troublesome to bandage those sections anyway. And that's going to be an upcoming barn hack on Horse Tip Daily.
Okay.
Is how to make a spider bandage, which is what you use to bandage a knee or a hock. So
Okay.
My barn hacks are horse tips that are visual, because I have picture and then I put it up on the Facebook page, so it's not necessarily an audio tip. So if you're not following Horse Tip Daily on Facebook, you should be, because frequently that's the only place you'll find the barn hacks.
I love the barn hacks.
Yeah, the barn
Oh my
hacks
God,
are fun.
they're all
They're
over
fun.
my barn.
I have a whole list of them over here. So that's what poultices are.
Okay.
Okay. Oh, and there's one more version. Or well, maybe we should. That's what they are. I guess next we need to go over what's in them, the ingredients that poultices contain.
And there's all different kinds of things. But actually, first we are going to take a break to hear from one of our sponsors, And then we'll be back. Blah, 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 blah.
We'll be right back.
We'll be back to talk about what the ingredients are in some of these poultices. Stay tuned. Sparkle and Boom is a new media marketing company. Our mission is to help small businesses add some sparkle to their marketing in order to get some boom in their bottom line. Our creativity, combined with an extensive background in the equestrian industry, makes us perfectly suited to help your business capture the potential of social media and the ever-changing World Wide Web. Visit us online at www.sparkleandboom.com. And we're back to wrap up this week's Tack and Habits segment. We're talking about poultices. We discussed cold poultices, warm poultices, why we poultice. And of course, one of the things that makes a poultice effective are the ingredients in it. So Jen, give us a little rundown on what kinds of ingredients are the most common.
As we mentioned before, clay is very common. And a clay really is, it's ice. There's no magic in clay. It's either hot or it's cold, and that's what it does. Frequently, you're going to find some kind of antiseptic agents in poultice. Usually, it will be labeled as medicated poultice or antiseptic poultice on the label. Epsom salts, a very, very common ingredient in various types of poultice. Again, favored for its drawing capacities, whether they're scientific or otherwise. Bran, believe it or not, wheat bran is a common ingredient.
That's a new one to me.
That's been around since the 1800s or maybe before even, but I know it was very common pre-industrial revolution, bran as an ingredient. It's frequently used in place of clay. So you're not going to find one that has both. You're going to find one or the other.
Right.
Iodine, common ingredient for its antiseptic qualities. Sugar mixed with iodine. And sometimes sugar in bran, you'll see that. And these are something you frequently see in homemade ones. Sugar in many places is considered an antiseptic. I don't know if it is or not, but you see editorially people call it an antiseptic. And there's something called ichthymol. And I'm assuming I'm pronouncing it right because that's the way I've heard it pronounced by every grizzly old horse guy in the world. And ichthymol is actually made from shale.
Ah,
yes, it is a specific type of shale, so it's mineral derived, and it's ground up and put into some kind of base, kind of Vaseline. It's that black savvy stuff that you see everywhere.
I have it. I always have it too.
Everybody
in
has
my
some.
closet.
And that actually is an antiseptic. It's a mild my phone's ringing. It's a mild antiseptic, but it is officially listed as having antiseptic properties. So those are all things that you're going to see in various and sundry poultices.
Okay.
Now, all that being said, what is your go-to poulticing product?
Well, it depends on what the need is. So if my horse has thrush, I use sugar and betadine, also known as sugardyne, which is wrapped with a baby diaper, covered with baby diaper. So that's a poultice to draw out the lovely things that get in the thrushy things that get in my horse's feet. Epsom salts. And actually, what I use now, because I'm lazy, is I go to my tack store and I buy something called Duravet, which is an Epsom salt in goo product. You can buy all in one.
Mm-hmm.
And you just scoop it out with your fingers, you slap it on the hoof, and again, you cover it up. I do very well with baby diapers, but not the baby diapers that have those gel beads in them that absorb
that's no good.
the moisture. No, that's no good at all.
Baby diapers. Buy the cheap generic brand. Yes.
Yep. And the other thing I use, which for my poultices, at least for foot poultices, is a hoof boot.
Must have.
Yeah, I must have, because duct tape doesn't work and baby diaper shreds. So that's for hoof stuff. For other things, my problem is I keep a clay poultice. a salt-based clay poultice in a tub. Doesn't matter what brand. But I usually buy it when I need it because it dries out real fast.
Yes.
Once you open it,
Yeah.
it dries out. So I buy it in as small a bucket as I possibly can. But it's definitely a reason for me to go to my local tack shop.
And who doesn't need an excuse for that? So
Exactly.
So you have your poulticing kit seems to be hoof centric.
It's hoof centric,
Yes.
yes, because again, we live at the coast, so you know this now, being down in Florida. It's always moist here, always moist, whether it's winter, summer. Maybe we have two or 3 weeks in the fall where it's dry.
Yeah.
So we're constantly battling hoof abscesses and so forth. But occasionally we get the soft tissue strain, and I will slap on some clay poultice with some paper towel. I like to hold the paper towel, use the paper towel as sort of a next layer.
Yep.
And then vet wrap and saran wrap.
Saran, it's got to be Glad Wrap brand too, by the way.
It's got to be glad that the self-sticking kind is awesome. But then, of course, you picture me out in the barn with all these things, and my horse is like, ooh, what's over here? Let me pick my leg up. Let me swat at a fly. Let me do this. Let me do that. So I throw a small tub of grain on the floor or
Keep
bucket.
him busy.
Yeah, little nuggets. So it's like maybe, tiny little nuggets, and I spread them all out on the bucket, and it keeps him busy while I put that
So
stuff
he's
up.
fishing around for stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, I make my cross ties nice and long so we can't go too far off. But so yeah, that's paper towel, saran wrap, and vet wrap.
Are
And
your
clay
friends. And
Yeah.
are your friends all in a
What do
little
you
kit.
have? What do you keep?
Well, it's changed a little bit. When during my competitive career, big bucket of clay poultice. Because we were constantly poulticing legs because,
Right, okay.
that's what you do when you event a lot. And one of the tricks I learned is take your clay poultice, spread it in a reasonably thin layer, about the thickness of, let's see here, about the thickness of a half a layer of a layer cake, thickness of a fat finger. And I spread it out onto a sheet of saran wrap or Glad wrap. And I make it all nice and smooth as I can. And I put another layer of saran wrap paper on top. And if I have the space, I take that whole thing and I just drop it in the freezer or a cooler if I'm traveling. If space is at a premium, I will take a towel and put it on top. And then I will roll it up so that the towel is on the inside of the roll. So that otherwise the saran wrap sticks to itself. And you freeze it or you cool it in a cooler, just like you would pastry dough. So that when you need to use it, it's cold. Because the point behind a cold poultice is for it to be cold. So that's kind of a helpful hint. You just put it in the cooler. And then when you put it on, it's really easy because you just take the bottom layer of saran wrap off and wrap the top layer on and wrap it on. And the top layer's already there. So that worked out really well.
But
now,
it's changed over time.
Now I very rarely poultice. Beaker doesn't get boo-boos all that often. Knock on wood.
Knock on wood,
Knock
yeah.
on wood. So I don't have to poultice very often, but when you need it, you need it. It's one of those kind of items. So in my kit, I always keep something called Animalintex, which is, it feels a little bit like a sheet of cotton, thick cotton padding, a little bit like the inside of a diaper, but it's impregnated with the poultice stuff. So all you do is dunk it in water and slap it on. That's all you got to do. And they come in leg shapes and they come in hoof shapes. So,
I've seen and used the hoof shape ones, but
Yes.
I've not actually used the leg shaped.
They make
I love
leg-shaped
them.
ones as well. And they're really handy. And they're what's called a medicated poultice. So if a boo-boo is part of the scenario, that's been taken care of. But you can also use it when there's not boo-boos involved. But it's nice because it can live almost indefinitely in your kit because then it's in a sealed package, which is great. It's great for traveling. It's great for it sitting in there for a long period of time. It's not going to dry out. And the one other thing I keep in my kit, as far as poultices are concerned, is I do keep a big tub of Ixamol in there because it is my absolute go-to as a drawing agent. If there's any suspect of infection for me, I'm all over the black stuff.
Okay.
Yeah. So those are my two go-tos.
Love it.
All right. And that's it. Tack and Habit.
That's it.
Let's wrap it
Tack
up,
and
girlfriend.
Habit. Let's wrap it up. So that was poultices, horse show moms, farm buying. Man, this was a full episode.
I'm
That is
exhausted.
plenty for this week. If you are a Horse Radio Network auditor, there will be a lot of behind the scenes material from this week's show. So if you want the deets, the backstory, more details, stuff that made it to the cutting room
Like,
floor.
Mom, why did you have to tell that story?
You get the HRN Auditors Edition. If you're not an HRN auditor, consider becoming one, because this is what happens. There's a lot of juicy stuff that happens behind the scenes on these shows, and our auditors get the scoop. So that's it for this week. There will be more next week. Until then, we wish you happy scooping.